I'm going to call to order this June 16, 2022 board listening session. Feedback from district principals, assistant principals. First, I want to say, I guess, do we need a roll call to know which board members are present?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Shope, can you call the roll for us?
Sure. Brian Anderson,
Present.
Spencer Anderson, Amy Levy, here. Sean Levy,
Present.
Megan Miller, present. Greg Schneider, Joanne Winfield.
Present.
I have 5 members present with Sean Levy appearing virtually.
Okay, so also to offer a welcome, I want to say welcome to our administrators. As professional educators, we know that your job is a very difficult one to be in leadership. Personally, besides serving on this board, I too am a school administrator. And we've been asked to do a lot of things over the last 2 years, specifically in the context of the school district of Beloit. You all have served us and our children, and we are thankful for that. As we stand here with some changes on our horizon, because we will have a new superintendent. As Dr. Kieser, who's been a part of our team, is moving on to Stoughton, we know that leaves you all with some questions. And then also just what your experiences have been over the last 2 years, and to get to this time where there are no kids in the building, and you have an opportunity to breathe and move a little bit differently. I want to thank Ms. Herford for reaching out to the board to express the desire of your colleagues to have conversation. And I thank Dr. Kieser and Ms. Shope for helping to make the arrangements, and the other board members. In this welcome, I guess one of the things that we'll say is that, try to get some context, is that as a board of education, and I've been a former employee of the district as an administrator, each board is made up of the 7 people that are serving. So, and we just had an election, and Brian Anderson and Joanne Winfield are selected by the community to serve. Over the last year, we have been trying to do things to structure our district to be put in a position of success by doing the things that the 7 of us are supposed to do in our proper role, and working with our superintendent. And so we have a number of things that need to be accomplished. Questions about our budget, our declining enrollment, all other things, a strategic plan, a number of priorities, about 6 or 11 of them. I'm speaking off the cuff right now. But it's a lot of work to do, and we never want to forget the people that are on the ground who are leading our children and leading the other professionals and providing that service, because your job is a very difficult job. So we want to provide the opportunity to hear what some of your concerns are, so that we can be better informed as we continue to move on in the work that we have, and be able to meet your expectations. For myself, one of the reasons I chose to serve on the board is, as I was finishing my district administrator classes, being a student who came to Beloit in '94 as a senior, saying we need more Black teachers, we need Black administrators, and we have an increasing Hispanic population, and they need professionals that can serve as role models in their community also, and seeing the work at different levels. Our recent past has we've had a negative narrative. and we want to be a part of a change that makes our community better, that really shines and highlights who we are as Beloiters and that we are a special people. So we've been trying to do things and work in a certain way that makes work just not be a circus-like environment. But as we're trying to do different things, um, it involves a lot of different work and getting our organization together on the same page. So we thank you for this opportunity that you've asked to speak and for us to be able to hear and be responsive. Um, what can we do for our children? What can we do for our employees so that we have a good system in Beloit and we can meet our community's expectations and needs is really where we're at. And with that, because I can't see a little tiny picture to see who's all in the room, I apologize that I could not be with you tonight. That was the plan, but I had to take care of a couple personal matters. But I'm happy to be able to participate via this technology, and to those board members that could be present so that we can hear from you tonight. And so, and it says, our purpose here is to provide an opportunity for district principals to provide feedback about the school year, to share your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns, your comments, and we're ready to proceed.
So if someone wants to jump up and say anything, it's an basically open forum at this point. Just if you go up to the podium, make sure you hit the button so that the red light's on, and then you can share your thoughts. I know that you guys had an opportunity to talk, and there were some guiding questions, so feel free to use those as a starting point.
My apologies. Before we jump right in, and this could be geared to either our board president or our superintendent, what does the format look like? Are we interacting? Are we just hearing and taking notes? Because I just want to be clear about the format so people don't feel like, oh, well, they didn't ask me any questions or they didn't engage and feel, some type of way.
Perfect. Board President Levy, you want to take it or you want me to jump in?
You answer first, and I'll come on the back end of that. So we'll work this out together.
Is more of listening and receiving. So this is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts with the board so that the board can take notes. If the board members need to ask a clarifying question or two, but the intent of a listening session is for the board to listen to your thoughts and concerns. So that they can use that information making decisions as a board moving forward on future board agenda items.
Another thing that I would add is kind of to give an example that when we are gathered as we are tonight, 5 board members present, that like if you were to ask a question and Sean answered the question, or Amy or Megan or Brian or Jawan, that would simply be what Sean, Megan, Amy, Jawan, or Brian are thinking individually. We are one of 7, but to truly understand what this board is doing, it takes all 7 of us to have a specific vote to form what is the opinion of the school board or the school district of Beloit. One of the things that we've been intentional about in terms of how we respond to people and in our work is we've developed some communication protocols so that we don't have 7 people off doing their own thing, but trying to be unified so that we are in service to our community and not causing confusion. So I would say that we will answer we would ask clarifying questions of some things that are answered, but we're trying to listen. This is a first session. We'll have another opportunity. But like I said, this is a part of how we're trying to engage with those that we serve so that we can meet your needs. And we'll work our way through it because it's our first time together. That's the spirit in which how we're going.
I have a question. Has this ever been done before? Yeah, I'm saying as in with the board, with the administrators. Has this, not recently? Is there a reason why?
Board President Levy, do you want to answer?
Well, I would say, like, I personally don't know why other boards. I have not served on other boards. I mean, I've been in since here April 2021. Megan Miller is our longest serving board member, and just kind of say that, like, this is just a part of us, trying to be responsive to the needs. So whatever did or didn't happen in the past that's what it is. But this is us just trying to be responsive to needs. So, on the lights.
Mr. President.
New environments.
And I just like to jump in and say that I'm not aware of, similar to what other board members were sharing, unaware if this has occurred before, but I would say that I'm humbled that this team has felt that the space could be created, and that the question could be asked, could this space be created, so that there would be an opportunity to hear from our building administration on their thoughts, the challenges that they see laying in front of them going forward, and then their thoughts on the decisions the board has to make moving forward. I think that's a testimony to the work that we've been doing these past couple of years, that they feel that you all feel comfortable that you could be here tonight and even ask the question, and that the board, through their collective commitments, saying we want to create spaces like this. So to me, it's a first, certainly in my tenure, but I think it's a tangible, actionable piece of the new path that we are forging moving forward.
Do you want me to start and break the ice? I'll do that first. Here we go. So I did have, I asked them a couple of guiding questions.
Put your microphone, please.
Hi. I asked all of them if they would like to speak to the board. I think that we are, and I can speak for myself, just a little nervous with the transition, and just trying to make sure that we are heard and that we're able to get some support to keep moving our district forward. So a couple of the questions that I had kind of thrown out there were what has been going well in our buildings? What are some of the challenges in our buildings? And then suggestions for what we need in our next superintendent. What qualities does he or she need to possess to keep our district moving forward? So if you're okay with that, I'll start with the first question. I did send out a document and ask any principals or assistant principals that could not be at this meeting if they wanted me to read something that they had to say, just so you could get as many opinions and voices as possible. So I'll go ahead and start with those, and then maybe whoever wants to come up and start talking about what you think is going well in buildings, and then we'll just move through the questions if that's okay. All right. So so this is just a Google Doc, has some information in it. So things that are going well: working to get parents reconnected and partnering with them to help students. I'm assuming that is kind of, we had a virtual struggle of really trying to engage families and get parents into that technology. So that reconnection has been super important. Closing reading gaps in third grade, sharing experiences with other grades to improve upon this year's learning. Collaborating together toward a common mission and partnering with our school community to achieve goals. And staff working together and supporting each other. So those were some of the things that we said went well for people who have not been here today. Is there anyone that wants to add on to that? And that's a no. No? Nobody's gonna say no for real? Thank you. Joe, what is going well in your building? Come on up to the mic.
Do I have to come up or am I good here? Oh, all right. We're not
So as someone who is returning to the district after being here for many years and then leaving, and I would say being able to go back to Aldridge, I see in regards to like staff and students, I've seen some really good interaction. I've seen some good relationship building with our staff and students because, you know, we have to realize that our students were out of the building for quite a while, and having them to have to, you know, reacclimate to being in a classroom and to having that structure. And I will say that at the beginning, there were some struggles, but I can say as a whole, our staff really pulled together and they worked together and they were very supportive of each other as, you know, we made this transition together. And I think that our students' lives were enriched. And I think also that, you know, as far as their social emotional, you know, we addressed that as best we could in regards to letting them know that they were welcomed and that, you know, we were there to support them and that we cared about them. So I think that that was good happening in our building, and also just being able to come together as an Aldridge family for each other. So I think that those are some things that went very well in our building as we carried out the year, and we ended the year very strong. So very proud.
Joe Redex, principal at Aldridge. I agree with everything Sheila said. She nailed it. I would just add to that in terms of things that went well. It seemed like our family events, people were hungry to get back into the building. And we had, I'd say, record turnouts for almost everything that we held. Just a ton of great energy, parents, families wanting to be involved. That was great to see. And probably one of the highlights of the year were those events. I thought the way that the staff pulled together and really, you know, I thought there was a lot of, let me see how to put this, well, it was empathy, but, you know, they showed up every day. We had our teachers in the building. They were teaching. That was important to the continuity of instruction at Aldridge. And, you know, I know that they faced a lot of challenges, but they were there. And just very proud of the effort that my staff gave this year. I tell them it feels to me like it's got to be one of the most challenging years, you know, in the last, 25, 50, I don't know, I've been alive 100, but where else have you come off of these kind of challenges back into a year like this in public school with all of that time missed, right? Learning gaps, social emotional gaps, just kids forgetting what school is like, teachers forgetting what school is like, and everybody, administrators forgetting what school is like, coming back into that and trying to get things right and the best possible setup and do the next smart thing with just a lot of movement and activity and challenges to face. But what I'm trying to say is in the midst of what could have been chaos, it's not chaos, right, if you know what you're doing with it. The staff knew what they were doing, and order came and kids improved, and it was great to see this year amidst a lot of challenges. It was a year of victory, I'd say.
I don't have a clarification, but I do have a request. I love that you said that kind of parents and guardians were hungry to get back to staff events. I'll speak for myself, but I may be speaking for the rest of the board as well. We enjoy being invited to those events and to come out and to see things firsthand. So don't be shy about inviting us. Like, everybody's busy, but if we can make it fit into our schedule, I think we would love to be able to do that.
That is one of our board commitments that we set down in April to be in the schools. Like I said, speaking as a former employee, that board members in schools has meant different things at different times. But we're just trying to be regular board members in schools, not make your schedules or do your job when we come.
Another piece that I think has gone very well in the elementary world is our new reading curriculum. Staff have worked super hard to get it right and going, and kids really, really, really improved. So we're seeing a lot of great results for kids. Kids feel proud, and I've never seen so many kids reading and asking to read and asking about books and can I get this and like titles. We went to Cunningham for our tour, and the third graders were asking questions about the school, and they asked a bunch of questions about books. Do you have the Diary of a Wimpy Kid? Do you have so we were just like, oh, like that really made us excited. And then coming up, we have the math pilot. So that's something that I'm looking forward to because the art went pretty well. And I think it's important for us to get some great things in our teachers' hands so that they can do the good work with kids.
Leah Malott, I'm the principal at Converse. Ryan Stengel is also here with me, our assistant principal. Some great things that have happened at Converse are very similar to Aldrich and Merrill and Gaston. I'm sure everybody has a lot of similarities. I do want to give a shout out to our board and Dr. Keyser and everyone who was involved in getting us a full student services staff this year. Without our amazing student services staff, I don't think our attendance would have grown. We actually had great attendance for our kids this year at school. We were able to add on a full-time social worker, school social worker, and we have a 50% school psychologist who we share with Robinson. And those two individuals have helped us overcome great barriers in getting families connected by doing, routine phone calls, home visits, just in participating in our family engagement events. They're visible. Our kids know who they are. Our staff has really grown in the capacity to nurture and care for our kids. Every child by name and need every day is truly something that has been happening this year. It has been a very tough year to come back. It's probably been the longest year of my life in my 24 years in the district, but I think keeping people motivated and engaged and enthused about their job and their work that they do with each other and with kids has kept the passion alive in our building. Certainly some days are better than others for people, right? But overall, we overcame a lot. Our kids know every single staff in our building. We greet them coming off the bus. We see them on our morning announcements. We've included a morning announcement that now includes a video Skype into the classroom because all of this crazy technology has helped us grow from that. So our kids see us every morning. They see all of our staff at recess, at lunch. So all of those connections have been really instrumental in getting our kids to be engaged when they come in the door. No matter what time of day it is, we've trained everybody to say, welcome to school, not where have you been? So it's very important, I think, as a culture builder to keep our kids knowing that we want them to be there. We don't care what time you get in. Yes, it's important. Your attendance is huge. It's very important. But we just really care that you're here right now. And what can we do to help you and support you? And our kids know the new custodian. They know our new secretary. They know our new HRA. So we've had a few staffing shifts this year. Because our staff is so present and willing to make that commitment with our kids, we have been able to grow even in such a challenging year. So again, huge thank you to everyone who is involved in the implementation of our full student services team. Is amazing for us. We are so grateful for that. And that has been a huge culture builder for us all the way around.
I'm Samuel Carnes. I'm one of the assistant principals at McNeil Intermediates. I do concur with what a lot of my colleagues said in terms of the things that we were doing. I am new actually as well, so there's not a whole lot for me to base it off of, but one of the things that I want to add to what other people have shared was I do believe our PBIS worked really well. I feel like our students were extremely excited to be back into the building, and it was a great way for us to connect with them monthly. We know it was taxing for our staff, but our staff, they were very eager to give back. We had missed out on so much. One of the other things that I feel that went really well was we also got an opportunity to add a lot of different things this year that we might not have necessarily tried in the past. So to give you a few examples of that, we ran some additional extracurricular activities in addition to the CLC program. Some of you I've collaborated with you, and like I said, I've only been here since June. But one of the things, in addition to the state championship, was huge for our campus, for our district, for our community. But I know that the power of sports and athletics on what it does for our kids. And so we were able to offer programming that I feel like our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders really enjoyed. We collaborated with our high school above us to bring down the feeder pattern to work with our students. We brought in coaches, we brought in community partners, but we really tried to tap into the interests of our students. And so when we were able to tap into the interests, I feel like that was a new concept. We also added some mentoring pieces. So realizing that our kids came back from a lot of missed engagement or interaction and social pieces, we also added a restorative justice piece at our campus in addition to the restorative practices that we were already currently doing. And I was surprised to say that we had about 20 staff volunteers who volunteered to mentor with some of our higher frequent flyers when it comes to discipline. And so we were really trying to combat that. But I feel like this year was an opportunity that we really got to excel in doing those things because there was open-mindedness, and I kind of treated it more of like a year of opportunity for us here at McNeil to continue to extend on the things that we were doing. And the last piece that I will concur with what Joe said is the family engagement was huge. We did a lot of cultural relevant pieces. And I think that as a district and as a campus, we're moving in the right direction when it comes to the culturally responsive piece. The Hispanic Heritage Month, the La Pachanga. I mean, I really walked into a great environment that was welcoming for me as a first year administrator, but I also felt like I was able to excel and bring some of my strengths and gifts to that table to contribute to a team. So those would be a few of the things that I feel that went really well in addition to the other things that people were talking about.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Kaminsky, Assistant Principal at Robinson Elementary. We started out our year, and I first want to start with a thank you. As I look at the administrators that I team with here in Beloit, they are outstanding, they are rock solid, and they are deeply committed to our families here in the district. Robinson started out the year a little just with some changes. And we went through some struggles in the beginning, and we found our ground of who we are. And in times of trial, I reminded them it does define who we are, and that success would not have been recognized without many of you that I reached out to, text messages, emails, at all hours of the day and night. So I appreciate your support, and we are, but I also want to thank the board and also the district just for the commitment to the whole child. Not only, the art curriculum and getting to pilot 2 new math curriculums this fall, the commitment to the social emotional learning, the social emotional behavior, that is huge. And I see that as a point of emphasis, that we're really digging deep and creating space in our day to develop the whole child is critical in our success moving forward. So I thank you for that opportunity, looking at the whole child. But as I think about, opening our doors this fall, we have been doing a ton with getting families in, but in addition to the clubs that I see, growing the whole child, growing them socially and emotionally, with Boy Scouts back in the building. We also have, the Just Say No opportunities and the student council and the destination imagination, all those things serving after hours. Educators are doing that after hours, was huge. So just that theme of the whole child has been really committed to after COVID. So thank you.
My name is Ryan Stengel. I'm the assistant principal at Converse. You already heard from Liam a lot, and that was wonderfully spoken. We were doing a lot of great things at Converse, and I'm very proud of that. I'd also like to mention that our multi-level systems of support has been really key this year. Going along with what Leah said about our student services team, they've really taken the lead on looking at academic and behavioral data and teaming with teachers and getting parents in and getting the academic and behavior interventions that are appropriate in an equitable way for our kids to succeed. So I couldn't be more proud of our teachers and our team over at Converse with how we have met the needs of our kids and families. And going along the social emotional piece too that we touched on, I'm really proud of our teachers, support team, our special ed staff, everybody over there, on how we approach the individual behaviors of kids and really kind of look at the big picture and conceptualize. There's always a meaning behind behaviors, so we get to know all the kids so well, and I'm very confident that all of our kids who have some behaviors we have tight plans for, and we respond in the moment to those needs of our kids. And I've seen a lot of success stories with our kids who came a long way this year, who had some tough behaviors, and I'm really proud of that, of what we've done at Converse. Thank you.
Jen Sheevy at Fruzen. So everybody has kind of said pretty much everything that I was thinking. One thing that I'd like to add, we were pretty short-staffed at Fruzen this year, and one of the really cool things was we had some 8th grade teachers that we had a hard time filling. And the teachers and the directors at Colac have really worked to get that curriculum in a place that people could find easily. So we had teachers give up preps and all kinds of things, but they were able to access that curriculum without missing a beat for our students. So that happened a lot in social studies, and then our new science curriculum as well. The students really, really love. So I just want to say kudos to our teachers for giving up preps. I think at one time we were beating the high school in blue sheets for how many preps our teachers gave up at Fruzen. So I'm really, really proud of them and how they stepped up. So thank you.
I want to say one thing here, just as a space, having, as I said, having worked in the district before, and actually having board members take an action. It is a very difficult job that you all have. Even before I was a board member, I've been in front of the board asking for different administrators' salaries to be adjusted at a certain time. You're in a position, I know it from when I was serving in Beloit, that, as a leader, sometimes you can't say all the things that you're thinking. It's hard for you to speak out, and sometimes you need other people to speak on your behalf. In the routine work of the things that we have to do in schools, it's a very difficult job, and there are emotions that are involved sometimes. So as we conducted business, because there's hiring recs and other things like that, there from time to time, there's names on there and positions. And sometimes your work calls that you are in the public. And like I said, our goal is to be a good employer for the work and services that you provide. So to Ms. Sheevy, as we went about our business by policy, I just want to offer an apology to you in any way that, in the course of the business of doing school stuff, that you might have been hurt or just working through those emotions of that situation, because there are things that happen like that. But I wanted to make sure that that was said out loud to you.
And I just want to take a second to say I truly appreciate that. And it wasn't only my staff, it was all of these guys. Like she said, the text messages, all the support that I got. I'm here
because I absolutely love Beloit and I don't want to be anywhere else. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And I would say that like I said, that our goal is, our district, we have a past, but we're trying to provide a better future for everybody. So it takes some work to get out of some things. And as we're trying to do things the right way, sometimes we go back to like people just like respond a certain way because that's all we've ever known or done. And so we're trying to do new things. So just, that's where that's coming from. And just that, one of the board norms that we've created is that when we're in a new situation and we're experiencing something that we've never experienced before, as a board and superintendent team, we take a pause because we need to like understand and process what happened. And so you'll continue to hear and see as we're moving that those are things that we're trying to do because we do believe that we are a special place made up of special people.
I guess I would probably say mine is coming a little bit more from COEC. So I really enjoyed this year having like a SIP support person. That person just kind of wrangling me back to that. Sometimes I feel like, like we're running, we got everything going on. We got parents, we got students, we got staff that want to talk to us. And it's not always possible to be like, oh yeah, my SIP plan, I need to update it. Right? Because it's a piece of paper. It's a document. It's a working document, but to have that SIP person just kind of be like, hey, can I come over and meet with you this week and talk about where you are with your goals? What are y'all working on? And just to kind of refocus me back to that and make me like stop everything I'm doing and work on that worked very well because that helped to kind of bring that to the forefront. So I thought that was one thing that was implemented this year that was huge for me and my team. So then I was able then to talk to her and then have conversations with my building leadership team, and we could make adjustments or do things that we needed to. So that was important. I also think that the principal advisory board was important this year. That was myself and founder were on it for elementary, and there were a number of other administrators, but just to be able to kind of give our input in a smaller setting or just to hear and get more opinions, I think that was super important. We have not always had that space to give our input into decisions that affect us that people expect us to implement and then monitor, right? And so when those decisions are made from the top, and we don't get an input, it's very hard to figure out how to move forward and do those things based off of our individual buildings were. And so that I felt was really instrumental this year as one of the things. So I think we all talked. I want to move on to what are some of the challenges that you see in your buildings? Do you want me to start with the Google Doc first? Okay. All right. Timely feedback and follow through from the central office. Everyone being on the same page. Consistent support and visibility from district directors and coordinators. If this is not possible, then communicate where the focus is and why support may be lacking. So those were some suggestions that were on our Google Doc, and then I'll open it up to everyone else.
Yeah, in the in-between space, I say, Ms. Herford, thank you for kind of guiding the conversation along as you are. I'm going to count on you to do that as we continue.
Thank you.
Well, while we're waiting, I guess I'll throw a comment out there. Maybe it'll spark some conversation. But first, I want to thank everybody for coming out because we all have limited time, so I appreciate that. And it's obviously we have great staff and administrators in the district, right? So it doesn't go unappreciated. And I want to make sure you use this opportunity. It's great to hear all the wonderful things that are happening, but again, take the opportunity and say, hey, here's some challenges that we're having, and it's a forum that's open and safe to say that. One of the reasons I joined the board is is to try to do what I can, right, to make it better. And as much as I hate to see Dr. Keyser go, we do have, myself at least, as a newer board member, an opportunity to help impact the district in a positive way. So any other thoughts you have too, along the lines of like, here's some challenges that we have, and these are some ways that could impact, our decision on how we, look for the next superintendent as well. And so obviously, the input and impact from, these direct reports to the superintendent, for you to speak openly about some of the challenges. I think we have great professionals in the district that are going to say, here's my challenge, and I guess what? I'm also coming with a possible solution, because I'm a professional educator. So bring some of those things up and feel free to do so. If there's something that you missed tonight and you don't, again, I only, like Board President Levy said, I speak for myself only tonight. We speak as a board when we vote. But for myself tonight, if there's something that doesn't get brought up tonight that you want to bring up to any one of us as an individual or to the whole group, you can certainly follow up with that. But I would just encourage you to use the platform to help the district as a whole, because that's what we're here for.
So just to continue on, or to add to the piece about the communication. As we move forward in regards to our equity work, and, this is something that we've been working on and been working toward as we look at our data and we see the disproportionalities in our data in regards to discipline as well as student achievement. So one of my concerns when we talk about that communication is that as I look at the fact that, we have a lot of different groups that are working, and we're working on equity. But my question is, when are we going to start pulling all of those groups and pulling all of that together? Because to me, it should be like that well-oiled machine. Yes, we have these different components, but how are they going to all come together so that we can achieve that? We can start closing that achievement gap. We can start looking at those the disproportionality in regards to our discipline. And once again, it's like this building has this, and they're working with this team, and this building has that, and they're working with that team. When are we going to all get on the same team? Because we are a district, and as a district, we need to be on the same team. We need to be moving in the same direction, because even though our buildings are very much individual because of the students that we serve, because of our, teaching staff, but there should be commonalities within our district so that it's not, this group is working on this and this group is working on that. When are we going to pull it all together so that we can really serve our students, serve our community, and serve our families in the capacity that they need us to be there for them? So that's what I would like to see. And also, once again, the communication piece, because, a lot of times you're getting information secondhand, and it would be nice that if that information was disseminated to us, especially as the administrators, because it's like, oh, I didn't know that, so it would be nice that, if when we are all on that same page, I feel that we as a district will really start moving forward, and we will see the progress that we would like to see for our students, for our community, and for the district. Because if we talk about a district of choice, that's what we want to be. We want families to choose us. We want to be that first choice for them, and we still have some work to do in regards to that.
Mine fits nicely with what she was speaking about. I think we have a real opportunity here in Beloit to find ways to mesh all of us together and not work in silos. So right now, occasionally it will feel like, well, pupil services and then teaching and learning, and so how can we find ways so that all of that comes together? And I think part of it is possibly asking teachers and administrators to be on some of the groups that are deciding the things, so that so we are informed, right? And we can't all do everything, but we can all take turns. So I think that's an opportunity for us to grow, is collaboration among departments, and then with schools as well. So I don't know if that's like a triad or what it is, but that would be an opportunity. And then the only other thing I was thinking about was, as administrators, I know, like, I've appreciated Dr. Keyser with, helping me with my graduate work and such. But I think it would be a great opportunity for us as administrators to keep a piece of learning within our group too. We've done like little bits, but it would be nice to have kind of a focus that maybe we're all working or learning on a specific topic that maybe we feel best meets our needs and our students' needs, like what we feel like we need. So those are just my thoughts.
Board President Levy, may I just jump in with a clarifying question? Ms. Lewis, thank you so much for your comments. Thanks everybody for your comments. They're excellent. I just have a clarifying question. When you talked about having teachers and administrators be in groups, are you talking about teachers and building administrators being in groups with central office? Or that was your point? Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you. And thanks everybody so far. This is great.
I added some notes to the documents to help me just kind of gather some of my thoughts. Again, I did a lot of observing this year, listening, looking, and learning, just because I was new to the system. Not new to education, but new to the system here. So I kind of compiled a list. I don't want it to seem like I have more of the challenges versus the positives of what we had. But one of the things that I feel was challenging for us as building leaders is we're expected to be instructional leaders. We're expected to wear a lot of hats, but we don't get a lot of time with our staff. And so when I looked at our model where we have our early release days, we don't get a whole lot of time with our staff. They go into a PLC process. I was kind of shared with, well, you could just hop into one of them. But when I look at the fidelity piece of that, I know that some of the PLCs essentially may or may not have been meeting. So to the effectiveness of that, I'm not sure where that fell. But when you talk about culture and climate of what you're trying to build with your staff, if we only get 3 days out of the year to spend with them, and I know I missed the onboarding process in August, but as administrators, we're already trying to create our calendars of what we're going to be able to do with our staff in August. One of the second pieces that I felt was challenging this year was just the lack of resources on mental health. Again, I live in this community now, and learning that we have a higher need of mental health needs, which tied to the behavior piece, in my opinion, because we are not able to triage or support our students or our families, because our families are also dealing with the same mental health. I feel like a lot of my conversations with parents have been them throwing up the white flag. I don't know what to do. I don't have the resources. And I think there's a discrepancy when it comes to resources too, because I just think of a Nelson Mendez and maybe I shouldn't say names, but he's an EL student. He's escaping or fleeing violence from his country, and he's coming to a spot where I don't have the resources to support him. And I got frustrated with that, because we need to make sure that if we say we're a district of equity and inclusion and diversity, we need to be able to support a Nelson who doesn't have the resources as an EL student from El Salvador. The onboarding process, I feel like I'm fortunate because I have some experience in leadership, but the onboarding process, I feel like for anyone who's new to the pipeline, and I don't have a good word for lack thereof, but it was mostly on the job training, which is OJT, as I've been told in some of my previous roles, which is some of the best onboarding. But I'm thinking for people who are new to the system, or I take that a level lower, and I think about our new teachers who are joining us halfway through the year. I know that there was a system created to have a mentor, but I don't know if there was like a lead mentor on the campus that actually supported and met with them, because again, consistency transitions me to my next piece on just the consistency piece. We had a behavior coach, and I'm not talking negatively of anything or any matter when it comes to that, but I leaned on some of these external pieces from central office, and I think the consistency was it started off really strong and it kind of broke down, and I don't know if there was a breakdown in communication, higher needs at other campuses, or we were just stretched too far. I also know that being an intermediate campus, it's a unique setup already, as I've learned, having 4th graders with 8th graders. But the SEL that we are teaching, and I know it's transitioned, so we're moving to 7 mindsets for the intermediate, character strong, which I'm familiar with for the elementary. And then I want to say the high school, I can't remember off the top of my head. It might be a combination. But I think that that was a little bit of a challenge because we have carved intentional time, which I know we shaved off a minute to add to our advisory so that we could have 30 minutes during this advisory period to actually teach that. But I stick with a quote that was said to me at a training. If we say we don't have time for something, what if we transform that to that's just not my priority? And so, again, I don't want to sound negative, but if we say SEL is a focus for us, and we have 30 minutes built into a day with 10 periods or 7 periods, whatever the number is between elementary, middle, or intermediate and high school, I think that that was a little bit of a challenge because as a campus, we were asking our teachers who are already taxed to help create lessons, yes, based off of the things that we noticed from data. So we had a lot of things related to physical altercations, and we were trying to do a mind shift with our teachers to move from like admin, I need admin, to doing classroom referral. So I think some training in relation to the new SEL that comes out. And again, I know we were doing second step, but I feel like some of it was outdated. So I'm glad to see that we're at least transitioning from that piece. And then the tracking piece, I was told we used to do some things related to school connectedness. Do our kids feel safe in the building? I don't know if there was a survey that was done in the past. One of the systems that I'm familiar with was Panorama, but I want to also make sure that the actions that we're taking in our building are actually being impactful for what we're doing. So the challenge to me is we have certain data points, but I don't know if it's going to tell us what we actually need to know in terms of making an informed decision to move forward. And so those were just some of the quick bullet points that I was just gathering my thoughts and running through my head from start to finish from September to, I guess, June. So, and I guess lastly, just in terms of the central office piece, and maybe this ties to the onboarding piece, there are things of people I didn't even know who I was supposed to talk to. And so having a nuts and bolts type of training, whether you're new or if we had a nuts and bolts and I just missed that before I got here. But I think one of the challenges is again, I'm coming from a system, so I'm aware of like the people in terms of titles or folks I might need to talk to, but I don't know them personally. And so I'll go back to my first piece was that we had our first in-person PLC for assistant principals at the Welty. But if I'm being honest and transparent, like we didn't do introductions, so I didn't know anybody. I know most of the people in here because by word of mouth they're speaking, but there was no climate or culture building for me to being new to the system and getting an opportunity to network with these folks to find out what are the best practices that you're doing. So on one hand, when people share, well, I got the text messages, well, I'm new, so I didn't really, my team was who I had at McNeil, and then I made friends and colleagues and connected with people, our paths crossed at different places. But I think that just goes back to we don't have a pipeline and I know that we're working on some stuff for Grow Your Own, but it feels like our pipeline from the challenge is we're going through a staffing issue, which would be another challenge in our building right now. And we have, I want to say 13 vacancies or 14. I'm sure everyone can compare numbers of where they're at. That's going to be a challenge for us as we get ready to go into this next school year. And I know we're shifting between systems. So again, I think there's some calibration pieces that might be helpful for us as a district when it comes to calibrating our systems, because again, this isn't new, but it's like the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand. And then the expectations and the roles and the influences of what Central should be supporting with this, because that's also new to me too, to the hiring practices. And again, I don't want to be negative, but if we don't have say so in some of the hiring pieces that happen on our campus as an administrator, that's hard for us to do because like basically we didn't have a voice at the table. And so there are some that staffing wise, it didn't work out. But again, I have to look back at what are the systems in place that would allow us to not have that be something that happens. So sorry for the long laundry list.
Mr. Carnes, one of the things that I would say is like, you don't have to apologize. As you're new to the system, I think it is appropriate to push up and push out to try to get answers. I have a saying when I start a new job is I'm new until the 1 year later, the day that I came here. And so being new affords you the opportunity to say, hey, what's going on? Because I don't understand and I can't see some things. just in response to some of the questions that were said, um, we are in a development of our strategic plan, and that is a space for us as board members as we try to decide what the priorities of the board are and what needs to happen in the district. That's one space we're looking for feedback from people. So it's not what Sean wants to do, or Megan, or Amy, or Brian, or Jawan. It's what our community has decided to do. So we're thankful to Dr. Keiser and Battelle as they and our team as we've led through that, and some of you are participating. I think, one of the things we'll say, even in my own practice as administrator, that people will tell us that if you had to do it again, we would always say that, yeah, there's some things that I would do differently. I think that, even in my own work, as people return back to school in person, that the needs of young people and professionals just not met because the situation that we're in. And even like you mentioned, some of the staffing issues that are going to continue throughout the summer because it's a part of what's happening in our industry. And then, like you said, the resources on mental health. And so, as we've had the experience behind us, hoping for us as board members that we're a little bit more thoughtful in what we do. Because like you said, if we'd have known, we'd have done something different. And then you all too, in your approach and your work. Personally, I look at like, this is year 23 for me. I'm going into season 24, like LeBron. I feel like I'm getting better every year. I want to win a championship, and I feel that you all do too. But this is an experience, and I have experienced things this year that I never experienced before. But we've made it to the end of a year, and we're looking back, trying to do better. So continue to push up and push out to bring people's attention to certain things, because as an example, as board members, we had to design a onboarding for board member Winfield and board member Anderson. And one of the things that felt good for us is when they say that they felt welcome when they joined our board, and that we had something to do which was more than what we had when we came on. And we think it's been helpful, but those two would have to tell you. But so at all levels of the system, we're trying to do that. And even as we got into a regular practice, I say, like Dr. Keiser sends to us on Friday afternoon a board update. One of the things that I heard just in that comment, to whoever our new superintendent would be, to say, hey, our administrators want to know what's going on. I was a part of a district where we had an administrator's bulletin that went out on Thursdays just to keep everyone in that information loop. So those are the types of things that, we can all address as we're more thoughtful about how we go into the year. So thank you.
I will just jump in briefly and say, not only should you never apologize for being critical, we love this district enough to be critical and to not accept the status quo. And that means making tough decisions. That means taking tough votes. That means standing up and being transparent and speaking your truth. So not only don't apologize for it, I and I'm sure others are just so grateful, because we love our district enough to be critical because we want it to be better.
Jason Wilhelm, AP at Gaston. I think there's a sense of urgency for the administrators in the district to know what is the process, what is the timeline, because we're coming up on July 1st very, very quickly, and then we are going to be missing that top leader. So what is that timeline? Can that be communicated out to us as a group? Because we have not heard that at this point. And then I also wanted to say thank you for allowing this opportunity to listen to our concerns, and then we look forward to seeing you show us that you are listening by listening to what we say and making those actionable items on the board's part. So we not only want you to hear the words, but we want to see the action by you showing us that you are listening to our concerns. So thank you.
Right. Oh, so one thing, Dr. Keiser is with us to June 30th. Some of the things that we need to do, we're challenged by our schedule, but we will have appropriate leadership in place. So as we work towards July 1, Some of those things require open session meetings. Some of them require us to go into closed session. And we got to get dates on calendar and manage people's schedule, just like it took for us to get this meeting. And we wanted to make sure we got this meeting in before people like left. So like, even though it's 5:30 when you came, that you're not coming on your time, but trying to honor the request that was made that it would happen after students. So you have a period of reflection. Um, but I'll say that we will have leadership in place. We have to discuss because it takes 7 people. We need to come to a decision, whether it's 4-3, 5-2, 6-1, 7-0. It's not a decision that one of us makes. It's a decision that all of us make. So we are doing the things that we need to do to secure that leadership. And we have a meeting on the 21st, and we'll be discussing more of those things. And carrying those things out. So we're definitely responsive to that. I just also want to highlight, because this is another part of like communicating. I, as a leader, I'm not a bait and switcher. So like I shoot straightforward. It is difficult, like we said, in terms of work, that input and hearing, there's a space for people at the table because we're not working in a vacuum by ourselves. Sometimes, like I said, we have to work our way through positions and policies and bringing 7 people along to make a decision so that we can be stating, this is what the school district of Beloit, the direction we've determined. And sometimes that takes time. And because we're not trying to have, there will be disagreements, and that's fine. But we don't want disagreements to become frequent or regular, and that there's a circus-like environment, or it's just like, yeah, they're always crazy. I mean, that's one of those things, and people have been in different professional circles or even grad programs, and people talk about our district. So sometimes to get to the place where we need to be, all the suggestions don't directly end up in implementation as that's what the board decided. And so respectfully, we're definitely hearing the needs of employees and want to meet that expectation of need. But then we will also be deliberate in our space to make decisions and do what we think is in the best for the whole, because we're being presented. One of the things I like to explain to people is that as a board, if we're following the processes that are in place and the policies and respecting people's roles, like there's things that the superintendent has to do as the administrator, and he works with the day-to-day operation, and then he works with the 7 of us. There are some times where the role of the board is not until the end of a thing. Our role is not at the beginning of it. And so when we make decisions, it has to be in the proper sequence of whatever process we're in. And then sometimes as we're making decisions, people do not have all the information that the 7 of us have. So the questioning of our decision, I mean, it's a free country, so people can question, but people are not dealing with all of the details and the facts that the 7 of us are dealing with when we're making some of the decisions that we're making. And it'll never be, it's not even legal sometimes that all the things that we're considering that go into a decision will ever be in front of the public. But like I said, that's why people elected us to the office, and we take it seriously that our role is to serve, and that's what we're trying to do.
Joe Vidox from Aldrich again. I suppose the challenges from my perspective would be 4 that I can think of off the top of my head as I have a chance to think. Stability, staffing, sub situation, and too many initiatives in one place at one time. When I talk about stability, longevity has its place, and it feels like to me every 3 years or so, if you put every position in the district on a piece of paper about every 3 years, you have to replace in a cycle, right? There seems to just be people leaving at different times in different places enough across the district where it's hard to gain traction and move forward. It's anecdotal. I don't have the data in front of me. That's what it feels like. And so how can we get that traction if things are constantly changing and people have to constantly learn new positions? What's a break-in for, a new director, a new principal, a new superintendent? A year, 2 years before we move forward? And then what if they leave again? And you're just constantly spinning wheels. So what can be done, I guess, is just the question. What can be done to create more stability? Complex question, lots of answers. But, I just feel like that's something that's hindering our progress, to constantly change positions of leadership, teaching positions in and out constantly. It's not a high leverage strategy for positive change. Staffing. We were fortunate this year that we really didn't have staffing issues we couldn't overcome. I had 2 building subs. I'm a catastrophe away from blue sheets every day, multiple blue sheets. It's a culture disruptor and a culture killer for teachers to constantly give up preps to fill a position that's not theirs to teach. They have to come in and find a plan, and sometimes the plans are well written, and sometimes they're a little less than well written, and sometimes you're winging it a little bit and just using your instincts as a teacher, and that was your prep, and then 3 days later you get to do it again. Staffing is a challenge. Sometimes we can have few candidates for positions. Sometimes positions can remain unfilled for a year. And I want to be part of a solution, but I'm not certain how I can affect those things at my level. How can we create more of a pool of candidates? And, the pipe dream, of course, is a pool of candidates that's diverse. How can we do all of those things? Those are challenges for us at Aldrich, at least. Sub-situation related to the idea of staffing is just, it feels hard to not have adequate subs in the district, so that you can't have any kind of professional development that happens in a day. So those are always the things that fall away. Let's say I've got a social studies teacher and there's a PD offering during the day. He puts in a sub 2 months ahead of time. He's on top of things. He has his plans done. He's communicated 10 different ways, left and right. And then we get to that day and he's the first one to drop and has to go to the classroom if I've got 2 people absent. I can't send him because he can teach. He's not sick at home. So, that's one example of kind of the bind it puts a principal and a staff when they just don't have the flexibility of having adequate subs in the district. Again, I want to be part of that solution and help find a solution. I don't know what it is, and I know that's a challenge, at least for us at Aldrich. And then the idea of initiatives. In my building, I had 3 major initiatives this year that were equally monstrous and required lots of time and energy and focus, lots of getting people on board for something new. All those things can be culture disruptors. And, I'm all about initiatives and making change, but too many at one time in one place doesn't seem like a great strategy for positive change. And so how can we align, the different departments that maybe come up with the initiatives to do some sort of a rotation, timeline, something, framework, so that, I don't have 3 major initiatives plus 2 new curriculums, plus whatever else comes down the pike in the same year. Those things are difficult to manage and create challenges, at least at Aldrich. Thank you.
Maybe I'm breaking our format. I don't know, but stability from the board level. Here's an example that board member Miller served her complete 3-year term, but at the board level, our recent history is that people have not completed their 3-year terms. The superintendent in our district had not been evaluated because those board members had not served their complete terms, and the superintendents had not served their complete terms. As administrators or employees, we're reading about the Great Resignation. People are making choices on their job as we're in the middle of this global pandemic and the aftermath. So that stability is important. But there's going to be a degree of turnover that we can't control because people are coming and going. But you're right, we do need district practices or policies that hold us together. That's where we're coming back again to the importance of our strategic plan, so that as you know, Dr. Keiser's our teammate, but he's moving on to another team. But whoever comes next, the purpose of our strategic plan is, no matter what pieces come or go, these are the things that we've identified we need to do in Beloit over the next 3 to 5 years. And so the partner will come and help us do those next things. And it, you know, and for some, it might be that in some spaces, some positions, like you said, for staffing that are hard to fill, it might be that people, you know, because they have choices and things change in their lives and other stuff is happening, board members and professionals, it might be that they're only with us for a season of time, but we're still going to move forward. A kind of norm that we created in our board meeting is that when we've got a group task, if people like don't do their part of the group task, we decided that we're going to move on anyway. We're not going to let people hold us up. So there's things that we have to do. Excuse me. There's things that we have to do in our own work to create that stability because of the things that we can't control. The staffing issues, like you said, that's industry wide. We definitely do want diverse pools. And this is a point where I'm going to bring up like the history of our district, that things have not been done well and things have been done harmfully, with harm in the past towards employees of color. And even not just employees of color, we've had people do some mean things. They've had power and they've used power in a very mean way. When we do things like complete the Evergreen compensation study, we're identifying things that have been inconsistent in the past and trying to have the appropriate, methodical, research-based way to move forward. And Dr. Keiser presented that compensation model, which affects all employee groups, not just the teachers, not just the paras, not just administrators, but to create what has been a cultural problem for our district of compensation, getting that correct. And using the ALMA group and the Combio group to address some equity issues. Those are things that had not been in place in our community. I'm a qualified professional educator, and I know others of color that have graduated from high school in this community, and there's been a systematic approach that has kept them out of the district. So we can have diverse quality pools, but people have not got to be discriminated against when things are happening, and the hiring policies have got to be followed. And as administrators, principals, and assistant principals, you really are the key, and you're on the front line of the hiring in our district. So those are things that we need you all to keep in mind also. With the initiatives, Joe, I'm thinking about some of the things that you said in strategic planning. Like sometimes we just need to make things simple. We're focused on student achievement. We're focused on having orderly learning environments, and people working together well. So, I mean, I hear you on that. And then with the subbing, it's part of what happened with COVID this year. I have quantum leap throughout the district that I work in. I've been a third grade teacher one day, and then I was a gym teacher. Then I was an English language arts teacher. I mean, I just woke up to an email that said, this is what you're doing. And so I definitely understand and appreciate the work that you probably had to do just to make sure that school could happen for kids. So it's not lost, but like you said, what things can we do proactively to prepare ourselves for what we might be facing? That's understood.
Well said. I would echo everything you just said, Mr. Levy, and also going along with what Joe said, I think our biggest challenges, our biggest hang-ups at Converse is fatigue. General fatigue, because we're coming back. You know, we've had, let's wear our mask, you know, then we have parents who are angry about that, upset, you know, so that wears on people. People take it personally, even though we tell them not to. It's much easier said than done to not take something personally. Then it's initiative fatigue. I mean, while we didn't have as many initiatives as other buildings did, just coming back, having students fully in front of us face to face, we got this great new art curriculum. It is fantastic. It is amazing. But it was difficult to get through that first year. You have to learn it. You have to really be 100% involved, engaged, willing to listen, and willing to give up your past practices to make present practices and future practices better. So that is exhausting for our teachers. And it's a good learning type of exhaustion, but nonetheless, it is still tiring for our teachers. And then I think probably the biggest piece for our staff was trauma, fatigue from trauma or secondary trauma. Just knowing what some of our kids have gone through, knowing how they've come back to our buildings, and the needs that they've had throughout the year. Our kids made great progress because of our staff, because our staff gave 1,000,000%. But they're tired. They're very tired. They're a very resilient group, and they persevered through some really tough times, but they're tired. So I think just that exhaustion piece has really set in for some of our staff. I saw people get sick who I've never seen get sick before. And their illnesses, like a cold or whatever, lasted for a long time just because they're worn down, they're tired. Lastly, I'm going to be bold and brave here and just say that the most recent challenge in our building is Dr. Keyser's announced he is leaving because the bulk of my staff said, "Oh my God, not again. Here we go." And I do feel that, I feel their sentiment there. I've been in the district for many years, and I think I lost track of the number of superintendents I've had, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know, maybe 7, 6, 7, I don't know. It's a lot. Every time we go through an administrative change, it is hard for staff to adjust, whether we all recognize it or not. People internalize things differently. People see things differently. People hear things differently. So while we're all trying to be positive and look for our best candidate and wish Dr. Keyser well, I know he will do well and do great things. It is exhausting for some of our staff. For some of our staff that have been in the district for a number of years, they are feeling like, now what? Now what are we going to do? We had a couple years ago, maybe we had a little fear brought into our buildings, and that's a hard thing to get over. I'm still not over it myself. Dr. Keyser can probably attest to that. When he comes into my building, I'm like, oh, if it's unannounced, I'm like, okay, is everything okay, right? We've gotten over that, but that's not okay. So what we need to kind of come over that challenge is we need some more visibility from central office staff. My staff shouldn't have to be like, oh my God, what are they doing here? Nope, it should just be a comfort factor. They're here because you're doing good things and we all want to see it. So we would invite more people to come in. I give a huge shout out to Tony Bosco. He was our SIP liaison this year with our building. He was in our building at least once a week, if not more. We also included the DLI program in our building this year. So he was a constant face for us. It made my staff really much more comfortable having district administration in. Dr. Keyser came in a number of times as well. Sean Winters came in a number of times as well. So there were some positive, visible faces in our building, but we need to see more of that. Until my staff sees more of that, and I think other buildings might say the same thing, we're going to live in that fear factor. And that's not okay. That's not how to grow a district. It's not how to build culture. Thank you.
I definitely want to say thank you for sharing that. There's one, to reference that people are tired. This work is hard work. And acknowledging that we went into it tired, we've just come through it tired, and even as we look at what's in front of us, we might still be tired. That is a good word to help focus us as a board. Knowing that we have to keep going, but we have to acknowledge and do something about the fact that we know we're tired, that our people are tired. And then for change, as an example, and sometimes I have blind spots because my administrative thinking, and it is why we have lots of other board members in our discussion. They add to things. One of the things I tell my children, I talk to them about the fact that as a parent, I will not always be here with them. My wife does the same. I've lost my mom over 12 years ago, and I still think about that. because I had friends that lost their mother when we were in high school and in college. And I know people that lost a parent very early in life. And even though I was 35 years old, um, that really hurt, and it still does. And so, organizationally, when we think about um, Dr. Kieser leaving, and I say this because I think Dan has been a good partner for us as we have gone through the last 2 years. Um, that change is something that's hard to accept, especially for our district. So I'm glad that you called that out again. That for our district, no matter what reasons, for people that is that say, oh, here we go again. What's next? Because it feels like a loop and a cycle. Um, but I will tell you that this is, to me, I'm experiencing it differently um, because of the work that we've done together. It's not that it was thought that it would be just easy for people to move on. I was, I'm going to share a little bit. Dr. Kieser explained that, with the announcement, there came some different um, reactions and relationships change. And so some of this is a part of us maturing as an organization and understanding, like in the life of an organization, that some things happen. Like I said, I speak to my children about death because I think that it's a part of life to prepare them that as your parent, I won't always be there. And you have to know that this is also a part of life. I'm glad that you were all able to celebrate Dr. Kieser in the moment before this meeting. But I think that in preparing our organization, what I'm happy about, if I answer this question as a board member, is that we have some obligations in Dr. Kieser's contract, and we decided to give him another year out. So that says that we had a good working relationship, and he was welcome to come back. And for the reasons that he made a choice that he needed to make for himself. But for anybody, this is my own personal reflection in my work. We work with 1 year and 2 year contracts, and maybe you've got another provision that'll give you a year, but you've made a large commitment. People in their lives have made a large commitment in education, but we're really doing this with 1 and 2 year contracts so that at different times in life for people, they're going to move on. And as an organization, that's a part of our maturing process. And we understand that it'll take some time, but we have to develop that space to know that we've got a teammate in Dan Kieser who's going to another district. We're going to cheer him on from the side, and he's also cheering us on in the work that we're doing. And then when the story is told about how Beloit became a different place, we'll mention all the people that were on the team. And that's where that's kind of where we're going towards. But I definitely hear you about being tired and the change and like the shock that it is to our system because of what is happening. And we want to be prepared for that as an organization to help.
And just to add a comment to that, I think the way that we can deal with some of that is just making sure that we are honest and forthright with our staff and making them know that they're valued. Just even like small notes, small emails, whatever, and that we trust them in what they're doing to educate our students in the district. As we talk about that too, I think I also thought about affinity groups, like you need to talk to groups of teachers and find out what the struggle is. Like you really do. Like, okay, like we need to pull together the whole 7th grade language arts team and say, hey, like what's going on? How, like how can you get some of the help? We've been asked to do that when we do our SIT plans. And I think that that's something that needs to be done when you talk about implementing the curriculum, when you talk about actually teaching the curriculum and making it responsive to students. Like we need some type of group where you can get that information from people and they have those challenges. I think that we have found our voice. I am moving into the third one, by the way. I think that we have found our voice and that we're looking for more opportunities to keep that voice going. So whether that, like I said, be like affinity groups or like the Black Educators Network or anything like that, a way to kind of keep people still talking and moving forward. And then I would say personally, one of my struggles and my things is there's a stigmatism with a lot of BIPOC people in our community with mental health services, and we need to bust that wide open so that we can start healing our students and getting them the education that they need. And so removing that stigma is very important because mental health services is huge, and then we need those services there to provide to them. And I would say from my building, we struggle with the trust. There's a trust factor in going to a mental health service and doing some of those things, or taking those referrals from people and actually following up. And that needs to happen so that our students can begin to heal and work towards getting better. And then we can work on pushing those academics. But first of all, social emotional is the most important because that's going to help you sit down and learn, right? All right. So moving right along. All right. So suggestions for what we need in our next superintendent. What qualities do we think he or she needs to possess to keep moving the district forward? So I'll start with the list and then I'll go sit down. Okay. All right. So as administrators, we need to make sure that we have our superintendent available in a reasonable amount of time. A lot of times I think that this was mine, so I can elaborate. All right, so a lot of times I feel like, you make decisions, we're making decisions crazily, like every day, right? But sometimes you're like, I wonder what my boss thinks about this decision that I'm about to make, right? Because nobody wants to really be like wrong, right? Like, I don't want to be wrong. And then we got a whole storm, right? And next thing you know, you got, y'all know the craziness. Okay. So we really need someone that's available so we can touch base and say, hey, my expectation was here. This is how I was kind of handling it. Like, did you see something that I missed or anything in that nature? And so like that to me is very important. That has helped me along my way. Also understand that all of our buildings have unique cultures and that we're not all the same. And that's based off of our student populations. A visible administrator who is in buildings communicating with building administration and offering support. An administrator who is engaged in the communication process between the buildings, the directors, and the executive staff. I know some of these sound like things that should be happening, but they didn't always happen, so we just want to make sure we're clear. An administrator who is able to make typical research-based decisions for the district without surprise board decisions. An administrator who is present, visible, consistent, and willing to listen, committed and able to make the best decisions for our students, staff, and families. And we would benefit from a district administrator who is an active listener and trusts and supports building administrators to make sound decisions in the best interest of our students and schools. And then I'll open the floor for everyone else.
I want to throw an additional piece out there. Thank you for that list. With the compensation model that Dr. Keiser has provided, there's also a study, the Evergreen compensation study. And one of the things that study tells us, it's incomplete right now, but it'll be coming to us in full. And one of the things that it tells us is that, there was a restructuring that happened a couple of years ago by the Board of Education to the roles of the district. And that gave the superintendent a number of additional direct reports. So one of the things that you have just mentioned about, having that availability of the administrator, when we look at ourselves compared to other districts, that there's a lot of direct reports to our superintendent. And like I said, that study was conducted not of ourselves, but along with the compensation model, there's some other suggestions for things that we can do to become more responsive. So those things will be coming up. What you said, it has been heard.
Okay, so I forgot. So I do want to say we want a coach, right? We want somebody that's coaching us along the way, not the person that's just like doing our EE, like the person that's going to walk you through when you're talking about your PD, when you're talking about the next steps in your building, that's able to, have that sense and help you kind of tailor all that and make sure that it works and helps you put it in a box with a bow. We need a coach. So that to me would be super strong. And now, seriously, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let y'all go.
But just a clarification, you mean like, in addition to whoever your EE supervisor is, but that you have someone who is able to give you non-evaluative feedback guidance and just bounce an idea off of in time to make a decision? Is that what you mean?
Yes, because sometimes I think that we bounce ideas off of each other. I mean, which is fine too, right? But it's also nice to hear from your district leader and be able to bounce that idea and kind of get coached, because sometimes you might say something and be like, then direct it this way, right? But you need that person to just kind of help you feel like that, and for us to feel validated and affirmed as well in the missions and the visions that we're pushing in our building.
You know, I heard what Board President Levy said about 1 and 2 year contracts. I totally do understand that, but I would say, while that is true, let's build a profile of someone that's going to stay here like 10 years and then make that happen. That's what I'm asking for.
I love it much to. Oh. I'm sorry. That is, I hear what you're saying. I hope that. I guess I would say it like this, and this is a space that's cold. I definitely hear what you're saying. We would like the last person to be the person that was going to stay forever and make it work. But that is the part where, like, I just give some pushback to, like, gravity is a real thing. I don't know that people will stay because I don't know what the individual needs of certain people are. I know, like I said, for how we've tried to conduct ourselves as a board and the things that we've tried to do to create stability in a place, but people have their own reasons for doing what they need to do. I definitely understand the sentiment of what you're saying, but that's just not one that I'm based on the practical parts of it that I think is possible. But I understand what you're saying.
One thing I would be looking for would be a leader who is going to create a culture of being able to process major events that happen across the district so we can all learn from that. Because whenever anything happens, a major event in any building, we can all learn from that and grow from that. And currently we do not have that in place.
So I would echo a lot of those pieces. But what I would also say in terms of like qualities and things that I would be looking for, and the next leader to come to Beloit would be somebody who's innovative and outside of the box thinker. Education is traditionally not the same as it was 50 years ago. And so when we're still looking at the same systems of what we've had in years past, we need to, and we've had this conversation at McNeil, if we've learned anything from COVID is we had to redesign education on the flip of a dime. But we didn't take any lessons that came along. So we went back to doing the things, which is kind of like the nature of the beast. And so I think having somebody who kind of understands the way school redesign works in terms of how we could redo it. I'm not sure because I'm still learning all of the different rules between Texas and here, but if there's an ability to apply for a district of innovation so that we can do things differently within the times of our day, what we offer, the amount of what we have to offer, the different pathways. And I know that we're redesigning through the Portrait of a Graduate, but moving into more of a new phase of personalized learning. Yes, we have differentiation, but meeting our kids where they're at, as well as our families, because they have to be a part of that process, which leads me to the next bullet point would be somebody who's strategic and builds off the strengths and the gifts of the leaders within the system. We can't outsource everything, but we do have a lot of, I think, leaders in the system whose voices don't necessarily get heard. And again, I think part of it goes to a platform that we don't have created where we're able to collaborate and share those ideas across the building unless you've established or you've been a person who's been here 15, 20 years and has gone through it. So I think that's one of the things that would be definitely important. Visible was already said, but I think we also need somebody who's a collaborator and a connector. And what I mean by that is they see the big picture and we are engaging with more than one stakeholder. There's a lot of community partners. I think from what I'm learning, just in terms of the equity work that's here, we need somebody who wants to continue that great work, because I think that's part of the change that comes as people have shared. And I've been in a past district where we went through 3 leadership changes. Their philosophy of education changed. And so it kind of out with the old and in with the new, and it was a new design. And so I would want somebody who's going to come in and again, I kind of go back to the 3 words of look, listen, and learn. Somebody who's going to look about what's going on in the community, not somebody who's going to make a knee-jerk reaction to what needs to be done based off of their experiences, because as we said, there's not a one size that fits all. Somebody who's going to listen to the different stakeholder groups, which is where I also have somebody who's willing to engage with the community and the families and all families, because if I look at just the political climate of social media, it's a very divided community, but we have to be able to figure out who the leader can bring all of those parties together, because in the best interest of children, I always say 90% of children's problems is adults who can't get out of the way of that. And so somebody as a leader who's also going to hold people accountable within the district, within the community to a certain extent. I understand that a leader as a superintendent, you can't necessarily regulate or dictate what happens within the community. But I also know, and again, I don't know all the politics. I know that we're also getting a new city manager, and I was just talking to Michelle about this earlier. The 2 top pieces within this community, they need to be able to jive and collaborate and connect and have some conversations. But I also am looking for a leader who's going to roll up the sleeves and not just sit by, somebody we're going to see him in the classrooms, reading books to our 4K kids, coming in and engaging at our sporting events. Somebody who's out and about within this community, and not just the 7:30 to 3:45, I guess, is when the last school kind of ends. So those, I think, would be a few just of the qualities that I would be looking for in the next person that's going to come in. And then somebody who can bring peace and unify those different sides and perspectives, because again, I close with this. I think we're all got into education because it was either a calling or you felt convicted to be here. And that's kind of my story in terms of coming here all the way from Texas. I saw the stuff that was happening in the papers. My family and my in-laws were mailing things. So I know that there's been a lot of change, and I think there's a lot of pain, which kind of resides in the family. So I also think there's going to need somebody that can come in and kind of help heal some of the circumstances and situations of what's happening in Beloit, because there's a lot of history here. We just need to make our mark in history of where it's at, pivot and learn from that and grow. So.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, especially like being an innovative thinker. And I think that this can be a challenge for all of us. Like being an innovative thinker and outside of the box looks great on paper, but when it's time to do things differently, sometimes you get a lot of pushback, and we need to recenter ourselves. Are the decisions that we're making what's best for kids, and we have evidence of that? Or is it what makes us feel comfortable and what makes us, 90% adult problems? I would agree with that, I think. Or is it what makes adults comfortable? And so, yeah, being innovative looks great on paper, but when it's time to do it and it makes us uncomfortable, what is the response? And that's for board members, and I've called it like a failure of imagination. So don't just do the same thing expecting to get something different because you're too scared to do something new or do something that's not popular. So yeah.
Yeah, and in between, another thing to think about, I do subscribe to the paper and I read it. I thought that Mr. Barf's editorial was interesting. This Wednesday, I was happy to read that, it's not individual board members' faults that everything doesn't work. But the city and the school district are in a place together. Yes, they've had a lot more stability in their top leadership than we've had in the district, but they need an executive also. But when you hire city managers, superintendents, you're definitely bringing those people aboard for their leadership qualities, but they also work for the people. And things that we have to learn, things that I've learned in my administrative career, is that I am managing something. I am working on behalf of the people. And even if I stayed in a place 30 years and that place took on my identity because I was so much a part of shaping it, that it is still the community asset. It's not personally mine, no matter how much I invested myself into it. In that role, that those top executives, you expect them to lead with integrity and provide leadership, but they don't just do their own thing because they've got elected boards, city council members, and school board members that when the seven of us speak, we're speaking for the community at large. So it is that partnership, and they're very much, there's, like we said, roles and responsibilities. Um, an example, and it was brought up earlier, that Mr. Jayan Broomfield was shot and died, and that took place in our parking lot. It didn't take place inside the gym, which would have been even worse. But that happened in our community. That same weekend, I think in 72 hours, Chief Andre Sales said that 3 people were killed in Beloit. Beloit Memorial High School is where? Inside the city of Beloit. So although our city has prospered and is looking good materially, I think that as a district, we have the educators and we have the children, and we are the people. The people make a place. And, you know, our people, we're all Beloiters. The children that are at the Lincoln Academy, parents made choices. And that's fine. We're still Beloit Memorial High School. We're still the school district of Beloit. That place is in Beloit, and they're still our cousins, friends, nieces, nephews, and all of that. And so we're not in competition. We have to run the race that's in front of us. We have to do the thing that we're responsible for doing here. And like you said, stopping the pause because there's some very hard things that are happening in our community. That is necessary, and we have to find a way to do that. But like I said, to process those major events that happen across the district. But like I said, because we're experiencing these things and they're new, that it's almost like we're paralyzed and try to make that first next step. And what do you know in that situation? Because that family had suffered violence, I think in October or December. But in that situation, the shooter was from Madison, not Beloit. The shooter was found in Michigan. And it took a while, but it was from the witness testimony of people that were out there that our law enforcement was able to find out what happened. Now, societally, one of the things I think is the biggest part that we have to remember is for the challenges that our students are facing. If we were 100% the best system that we want to be, that because of the other challenges that our students are facing, they would not benefit and receive 100% of that effectiveness that we have. Some of the issues that our students are facing, like I said, because these are our cousins, our nieces and nephews, our granddaughters, grandsons, these are our family members, these are our neighbors, people we have grown up with. They are in situations where what we alone as a school do is not going to fix it. But if we look at once in a lifetime opportunities like our ESSER funds and the ARPA money that the city has, there are children who live in Beloit and go to school in the school district of Beloit. What can the city council, what can the school district of Beloit do to serve the needs of children that live in the city and go to the school district of Beloit? That those are the levels of collaboration that we are seeking. And like I said before, that level of communication has to happen. And we are reaching out to those other elected officials, our city council, our county supervisors, our state assembly reps and senators. Board Member Levy gives a legislative updating report that what needs to be done is going to take more than just us in the district, but it's a system approach. But we have to do our part but we have to also lean on those others to do their part also.
Okay. I think I will wrap it up for us. We appreciate you giving us a voice and that opportunity. We want to make sure that we're maintaining our administrators. That sets us up in the right direction. And so for us to have that opportunity to just tell you where we are and how we're feeling, and then we can move forward and figure out what to do next to keep pushing our district forward. So thank you. We appreciate it.
I would say, speaking for the board, we're thankful that you had enough trust to ask us to sit down at the table. You take care of our children. You take care of Sean and Madison. You take care of DJ. We are thankful for the work that you do. It is tough work. It's emotional work. It's stressful work. Society does not value us properly in the work that you do. This is a very difficult task in our community. But I would say just remember that you are doing a great work. We are building a wall around our families and our children so that the children in Beloit can achieve all the things that they want to do and be, and that their parents have dreams and hopes for. And there are some people that will detract from the work that we're doing, and we can disagree in the work, but we are doing a great work and we should not come down. We should not stop. So we're thankful for you and your efforts. And as we continue to walk through the next steps that we have to take, we hear you. We'll be reflecting on this, like you said, so that we're demonstrating in action that we're trying to move our district forward and be supportive of you, our families, our students, and our community, and meet the expectations that they have for the work that we have together.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
I got lost. I couldn't find the right buttons. It's been moved by Board Member Levy and properly seconded by Board Member Miller. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
That's my discussion.
Is there discussion, Board Member Miller?
I was just going to say thank you. This was a really wonderful evening. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you. Okay. I recognize that Board Member Schneider did join the call also. Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.